Welcome to the Momming with Jesus podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Hargrove. On this show, I help moms discover Jesus in their motherhood. I hope this show encourages you in your mom journey. Enjoy the message. Today's message is titled, Absent Parents, Anxious Hearts, Breaking the Cycle. Absent parents, anxious hearts, and breaking the cycle. And so I was reading this morning, and I feel like this concept had been like kind of little by little making itself apparent to me. And as I was reading this morning, it just kind of slapped me in the face like, man, like this is something right here that I need and that I feel like God is saying he wants to speak to all of us. So let's go into it, right? So I was reflecting on the power of a present parent and the results of the lack of one's parent. So I was thinking about when people have their parents present and when they don't. And I realized this. When a parent is actively and consistently present in a child's life, that presence itself brings peace. It brings a sense of safety and a feeling of protection from our parents for the child. But when a child's parent, guardian, nurturer, whoever you are, is not around, it brings anxiety. It brings fear and this lack of comfort, confusion, and a feeling of not being safe. Not being safe. And you might be thinking and I encourage you to think about that concept. Like imagine with your parent, the security it brings, without your parent, the insecure feeling it brings. And as I even reflect on my own life and even my own struggles with anxiety, I can clearly see that some of it, I'm not saying all of it, some of it stemmed from the lack of a parental presence. From the lack of a parental presence. This presence is not just a physical one, which is very important, but a parent who is emotionally connected, genuinely connected and undistracted and devoted. And granted, as I always say, none of us and none of our parents were made to be perfect. I'm not. My parents were not. And we're all trying our best. So there is no shade in this message to throw back at our parents, to feel guilty about all those things. But we are just really diving into understanding the importance of the present, right? And but it is not important to understand the depths. It is important to understand the depths of what a present parent actually brings to the table. Does that make sense? It is important to understand what a present parent brings to the table. When we understand the gravity of this statement, it propels us to strive to be a present parent and then some, right? And this is not just my lovely opinion, okay? There are some scriptures today that we're going to share that back this idea up. And there's also actually statistics, articles, research that backs this up as well. And I'm going to actually start by sharing this short paragraph of an article that I read. I've heard of this idea before, and today I was like, let me look it up and confirm that this, in fact, is true. And this is an article. If you need the actual source, I can totally put it in the mom's group. Okay. And it says this warnings about lack of contact. And it says babies who do not receive human contact in their first days or weeks of life often suffer from health problems related to this deprivation. They can exhibit a failure to thrive, a condition seen in orphanages among children who did not receive enough human contact when they were babies. Newborns denied physical contact with other humans can actually die from this lack of contact, even when provided with proper nutrition and shelter. Now, can you believe that? Does that make sense? Like, you may have heard of this before. Maybe this is your first time ever hearing this, but I remember hearing this years ago that precious newborns, that if they are denied and do not have the physical contact of their mother or another human to nurture and love them, that they can actually die. And here's the thing, that the children that actually passed away from the lack of physical contact were even provided their nutrition and shelter, the things that they needed. And how many times have people almost assumed, like, as long as they have this, and this, they're good. But there is power in the presence of a mother, of a person, a nurturer who can love these children. And it goes all the way back to our birth. That's concluding that article, right? The affection and presence of our mother has a huge impact on our development and quality of life. And the lack of it can even be fatal. Can you actually believe that? And as I reflected on this concept with our earthly parents and then our own parenting journey, it made me think about God, our Father. It literally made me stop in my tracks today as I'm like thinking about this concept of my parents, my parent, and all of a sudden I felt like God in that moment was like, whoa, imagine me. I'm your father. And it made me realize once again his promises to be with us always. He knew that we needed his presence. He knew we needed him constantly to thrive. He knew we needed to be reassured of his unconditional love and his constant presence. He knew that we needed him, and he did whatever it took to always be with us. And that was dying on the cross and the power of the resurrection. His presence brings peace into our lives, and we are now with him always, and he with us. So today we're going to talk about the power of the parental presence. Okay. So we're going to have 3 points, like I said. And the first one is in the importance of your presence. The second one is the lack of presence creates dot, dot, dot. And the last one is his presence brings peace. So let's talk about the importance of your presence. In Proverbs 1, 8 through 9, it says, my child, listen to your father's correction. Do not neglect your mother's instruction. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. I mean, I love this because it's just one aspect of the presence of a mother and the aspect of a mother giving instruction so much so that it crowns you. It's a chain of honor around your neck. It is something that it propels your children through life. In Psalms 113:9, it says, he gives the childless woman a family, making her a happy mother. Your presence brings joy when God grants you that desire to have a family. Praise the Lord. And I want you to know that I don't want you to doubt for another second the power and importance of your presence in the children that God has given you, in their lives. The children that you are raising and loving, these are the children God says, here you go. And as they grow, I'm sure it's easy to assume that the more independent they become, the less they need you. But I need you to always remember this, that that is far from the truth. They may not need you to tie their shoes today, but they still need you to be their mama, to walk them through life's challenges. There is no role like the role of a mother, and it is one that can't compare. We are the ones, women are the ones that literally hold this life in their womb for 9 months. This child is becoming human right inside of your uterus. And can you get your mind around that? Jeremiah 1:5 is one of my favorite verses, and it says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I already set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Oh, I love this verse. This verse, when I used to work at my old church back in Del Rio, I was the nursery director for several years. And this was our mission verse. This was our verse, and we named that ministry Chosen Kids. And I'm going to read it one more time. And it says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as prophet to the nations. What does that mean? That that child that God has gifted you with has been chosen even before you knew that child was coming into your life. That child was conceived. That this child is chosen by God. This child's brain is forming, its heart, its legs, its hair, its everything. The child's purpose is being planted in their heart, and God is knitting this child together in your womb. Not Susie's, not Felicia's, not Becky's, but yours. And if God didn't think that your child needed you, he would have picked someone else, obviously. The way that you hug them, the things that you teach them, the smile that you share with them, the songs that you sing them, the way you listen to them, all the little things you do for them is unique and special. And your presence doesn't require perfection, though. It simply requires being present, like we're talking about. And now knowing this, know that all of our motherhood and family dynamics might look different today, okay? Whether you're a working mom, a stay-at-home mom, or whatever your dynamic looks like, I know it's different and unique, right? But it's not always about the quantity of time that you have with your children, but it's the quality. And maybe as you reflect back on your own life and as you were growing up, you might say, you know what, you're right. Maybe you have instances where you remember your mother or your father, man, when they were there, they were there. They were fun. They were in it. They were so present. Or maybe you remember times where like they weren't. They locked in their self in their room as they struggled with their own, struggles. Maybe they were always out. Maybe they were always gone. And you know that whether they were there or not, that it was about the quality of your relationship. And what I'm trying to encourage you in is to know that you don't have to beat yourself up. If you feel like some days your time with your kids to be present is limited. What is important is how you are present during the time that you do have with them. Whether it's over dinner for 30 minutes and you take time to have genuine conversation, or it's as you tuck them into bed with the bedtime story, a prayer, and a heartfelt love, or whether it's on the drive to school and back. But when you're there, be there. And I've seen time and time again, literally just the other day, and I was like looking like, hello, hello, your children literally need you right now. And where children, teenagers, whatever, they're trying to talk to their parents in public. And I even went to like a doctor's appointment the other day and I saw this little kid and he's like, mom, 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 over and over. And the whole time the parents are just literally stuck to their phone. The parent ignores them, and then sometimes, like, a few times, like, okay, they're ignoring, and then finally they decide to answer, but when they do, they don't even make contact. They're like, "What? Okay, okay," you know? And in my personal opinion, this can be sad, and it breaks up the connection that can be made to make every effort to be intentional, to be present, and to even have those important conversations. And I'll be the first to say, I'm not saying I never get distracted on my phone. I'm not throwing shade because it's easy. I do get distracted sometimes, but I strive to be present when it's important. And I encourage all of us to evaluate, how do we show up when it's time to be present? And when I took my kids to the doctor's office the other day, we literally waited 3 hours in and out of the room, go in, go back out, go in. And I told myself, I don't want to be on my phone. I want to just be here, even if it's boring. I mean, you're waiting in a waiting room, it's boring. What are you going to do with a 5 and 6 year old? So we brought some cards, we brought some coloring stuff. And that doesn't mean we're having this deep conversation the whole time. But I was like, I want them to know that I'm going to be here in this boring moment. Did I check my phone to text my husband back or this and that? Those are little needless details you don't need. But what I'm saying is that doesn't mean I'm like, I cannot do this. But my point is the importance of simply being present when you have the time to be present. And I love what these scriptures that we're going to read in a minute helps us to see. Okay? The ones I'm about to read, it shows us that mothers bring comfort. Mothers nurture and care for their children's basic needs. A mother builds up her home. A mother provides instruction and joy to her child's life and much more. And I never want you to doubt what your presence brings to the table. You bring much more than mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, okay? You bring love, you bring affection and deep connection that is incomparable to other relationships. I'm telling you, the marriage relationship, friend relationship, sibling relationship, but there is nothing like a mother and child relationship. That relationship is next level stuff. And let me read these scriptures. Isaiah 66:13, it says, as a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you, and you will be comforted over Jerusalem. I share this verse because it shows that God is actually using the example of how a mother comforts their child to also show you that he comforts you that way too. He must know that the comfort a mother brings to a child is unique, is special, is deep, is more than just a pat on the back. Isaiah 49:15 says, can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has born? Though she may forget, I will never forget you. Again, he's using the example of a mother. He could use any example to tell you he's not going to forget you. But he decides to use this incomparable relationship of a mother to show you, I mean, you're breastfeeding your kid or you're giving the kid a bottle. Doesn't matter what you do, girls, okay? But you care enough to feed that baby. Are you going to forget that baby? No, maybe you fall asleep and the milk gets everywhere, but you catch me. And he's like, I'm not going to forget you, just like a mother could not forget their child. And Proverbs 14:1 says, a wise woman builds her home, but a foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. As women, as mothers, we have the power to build up our home, to build up our children, to build up our family. Our presence in the home changes the atmosphere. Our presence makes the atmosphere of our home and ultimately our children's life. And so your presence is important. Okay. So let's kind of move on to a little bit of the deeper stuff here. Let's talk about what the lack of a presence creates. And I know that some of this might actually be a little bit triggering, whether it's personally as you reflect back, maybe some struggles in motherhood. And I want you to know that, hey, it's okay. We're all in this together. You are a great mom. Your parents tried their best. We've all been through some trauma and drama, okay? And we're just moving forward from here. But let's talk about so we have understanding of what the lack of a mother's presence creates. And so here are just a few, and this is also from an article that I was reading. It says children facing parental absence may encounter challenges such as reduced motivation, lower self esteem, lack of consistent academic support, poor academic performance, increased likelihood of dropping out, sense of loss, and disrupted sense of security and belonging. I feel like that's a big one. The disrupted sense of security and belonging, which is why I was talking about how our presence brings peace. It goes on to say emotional challenges such as behavioral issues, academic difficulties, or difficulty forming healthy relationships, increased risk of poverty, behavioral problems, infant mortality, prison crime, teenage pregnancy, drug, alcohol abuse, and school dropout. And this was not necessarily added, but as I have been reflecting, I also see some of people's anxiety stemming from these things anxiety, depression, isolation, some of those mental health issues from having that lack of peace, having that lack of safety, having that lack of protection, having that lack of having someone to lean on, right? And ultimately, the lack of a parental presence brings a lack of peace. Hello, beautiful souls. This community thrives on shared stories, laughter, tears, and the strength that we draw from God's Word and each other. As we navigate the symphony of motherhood together, our mission is to uplift, support, and empower every mom listening. To keep our sanctuary vibrant and accessible, we are reaching out for your support. Whether you want to become a monthly supporter or by giving a one-time donation of the price of your favorite latte, your generosity helps us continue to bring content that touches the heart, nurtures the soul, and strengthens our faith and fellowship as moms. If our conversations have been a companion to you in your moments of need, joy, or reflection, consider contributing to our cause. Just visit laurenahargrove.com and find the support tab. It's quick, simple, and your support means the world to us and to mothers everywhere. Thank you for being a part of our journey, for sharing your highs and lows, and for momming with Jesus. Now let's return to today's episode. And so, why am I sharing this today? So that we can have a deeper insight to the lasting effects of the lack of parental presence. And some of you may hear this and realize that you have felt the effects in your own life, okay? And sometimes we don't realize this until we're all grown up. Hello, welcome, right? We just pushed through, tried to be strong, and we made it without the full presence of our parents. But it's hard when that's not how it was ever meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. God's design and heart and intention for parental connection with their children was to be long lasting, beautiful, this deep connection that's unbreakable. But what do we do now about it? All that we can do now is move forward and create for our children and our future children a sense of love, a sense of security, a sense of comfort and peace through our intentional presence in their life. And again, I'll say it again, God never intended families to be split apart, for parents to be disconnected from their children. You have to understand that the enemy's favorite thing to do is to divide. And one way he does this is by disconnecting families and parental bonds with their children by disguising it with sound explanation. Oh, well, they're not talking because of this, or like, we don't talk because of this, or, like, they don't need me. I'm not perfect. They don't want me. They push me out, whatever sound explanation. But I want you to never assume that your children don't need you anymore at any point in their life or age. No matter how independent they become as adults, they need you. They need you. They still need their mom. They need you when they're newborns, and they need you when they're adults. They need you when they're children, and they need you when they have their own children. And I feel like even that right there, as most of us have become mothers or desire to be mothers, when you become a mother, it almost like opens up this newfound need and desire for your parents all over again, because you are embarking on something so new. And it's almost like you want to look back and say, hey, how do I do this? Like, I need your support. I need your help. I need your comfort. I need your reassurance. And when you begin to have your own children, that much more you need your own parents. And motherhood is a lifelong role that is one that is the most fulfilling and beautiful roles that God can give you. And in the times that children push parents away, I know that some of you are like, "Ugh, gosh, I have teenagers. You don't understand." Through the teenage years, maybe through family disagreements or adulthood, maybe they move and they're far away and they don't call. I understand that there's circumstances where children push their parents away or maybe unintentionally just go away. But please know that they still need you, even if they act opposite. They want to know that you still love them and that your actions show them that you will be right there with them every step of the way to fight for them. And don't believe the lie that your children don't need you, that they don't want you, that you've already done your job, or maybe you've messed up one too many times to be close to them again. Children extend so much mercy and forgiveness to their parents. I mean, if you think about it, I think it's crazy. Like, we can be forgiving to all kinds of people, or we can hold grudges against other people. But when it comes to your parents, no matter how tough it is, it's like children have this deep extension of mercy and forgiveness for their parents. And why? Because we yearn to simply be connected with our parents. We have this unbreakable spiritual connection with our parents. And when a child is without parental presence, no matter their age, they are affected. But here are some of the beautiful promises from God for those of you who may have lost a parent, maybe been abandoned by a parent, maybe rejected by a parent, or maybe you feel like your parent just isn't present, doesn't care, isn't involved. As I was going through all of this, I felt like God wanted me to share these verses that reassure you of his promises to step in. And in Psalms 27:10, it says, even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord will hold me close. And I've read this one before in a recent message, but it is so powerful to know that the Lord holds you close. In Psalm 68:5-6, it says, Father to the fatherless, defender of the widows. This is God whose dwelling is holy. God places the lonely in families. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy, but he makes the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. I love this, that God is literally the father to the fatherless. And I love this statement. God places the lonely in families. And that makes me think of all the different dynamics of how God will bring families together. You may birth a child or you may foster a child. You may adopt a child or you may take in a friend who needs parental guidance, needs parental love. You may take in children from your youth group that have no mother, have no father. Whatever it looks like, God places the lonely in families. He cares for his children. He does not want them to be fatherless, motherless. He steps in and he provides that, but he also provides us that physical tangible desire that we all have, that he has given us to be in a family. So, no matter where you find yourself in this conversation today, know that God fills in the gaps. He is your heavenly father to you and to your children. And he will not allow even one of his children to be forgotten, to be abandoned, to be alone. He is the perfect father and he is our father. And I just feel like that word abandoned, like, just keeps sticking out to me. And I just want to just really reassure you on that. If that's something that you're feeling, that's something that you're experiencing, that's something you're afraid of, that's something that is a word that's popping out to you, I just want you to be reassured that he's saying, girl, I ain't going to abandon you. I'm not going to abandon your children. I will get you through this. I will be there with you when everyone else failed you, when everyone else broke their promises, when everyone else said yes and then said no, when everyone else left you high and dry when you needed them the most. He's saying, I ain't going to abandon you. And you can't get rid of me. I am your father. So let's end on our last point, and that is his presence brings peace. Ah, I love that. Even just that thought brings me peace, right? His presence brings peace. So now that we understand the importance of our presence in our children's life, and let's end with understanding the power of God's presence in our life, in the life of our children. And as I was thinking about this topic, I began to remember the countless verses that reassure us of God being present in our life. In fact, God's promise to be present in our life. And it made me realize that He truly understands our need for Him and the need that we have to be reminded and reassured as we journey through this life. And you know what? He doesn't have to reassure us, He doesn't have to remind. What He did on the cross was enough to say, hello, I literally gave it all. But you know what's beautiful about God is He's like, I got you. I want you to remember. I want to remind you. I want to reassure you because He understands our humanity. He understands our feelings. He understands that our experiences make us a little harder sometimes to trust what He's saying is true. And it reminds me of like sometimes like a marital relationship or maybe boyfriend and girlfriend and like maybe even high school, right? You're like, you're with the person, you're married to the person, and you're like, what? Several years in, like, hey, you love me? Okay. Well, yeah, of course I love you. Well, I just wanted to hear it again. Like sometimes as women too, we're like, I just need you to tell me like again. And so God Himself wants to reassure you that He is with you. And think about it. When you feel like you are surrounded by God's presence, whatever that looks like for you, do you feel a sense of peace? But what about the times that you believe for some reason that He's distant, or maybe you feel far from, maybe you feel like you've walked away a little bit? Have you ever felt the absence of peace? And I know for me, I feel a sense of uneasiness, of fear and anxiety when I feel distant from God. Not because He's giving me that feeling, but because His presence brings peace. And when I feel the lack of it, maybe for whatever reason, I don't have that stronghold of peace. But God is so gracious and wants to remind us that He is in fact present and His presence brings peace. So look at what these scriptures say. In Matthew 28:20, it says, here it is, girls. Be sure of this. What? He said, be sure. Be sure of this. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Even when apocalypse day happens, okay? To the end of this age when the world crumbles to pieces. Okay, I'm just kidding, but probably. He's saying, I'm going to be with you. All right, be sure of this. And here's another one, Romans 8:38 through 39. It says, and I am convinced. Do you see this, what's going on here? Say, be sure of this. And now it says, I am convinced. Are you sure that you know this? That nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angel nor demons, neither our fears for today or our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or the earth below. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. I mean, there it is. He's literally saying, He's not just saying, hey, I'm going to be with you always and I'm going to love you forever. He's like, let me make it clear, girl. Not hell's going to separate you. Let's see what else. Not your worries. No, not the powers in the sky. Like He's going through the effort to tell you every scenario you play in your head. And as women, we are so good at that. Okay, like you love me now, but will you love me if I worry tomorrow? Because you said don't worry. He's like, no, okay, you love me, but like, what if the sky crumbles? Okay, I'm still gonna love you. He goes through the effort of reassuring that nothing will ever be able to separate you from His love. And in Psalms 23:4 and 6, it says, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Where is He? close beside you in that dark season you went through, in this dark season you're going through, or the dark season you might go through, you can know that even if you don't feel him or see him, that he is close beside you. And it goes on to say, your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. What are we talking about? The presence of a parent brings protection and comfort. Okay. And so he's saying, I will protect and comfort you. And it says, surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. There is a room in God's house for you forever. You have a place to go. You have a place to stay. Maybe you don't have that from your parental figures on earth, but he's saying, you will live in my house forever, girl. I have a room for you. I got you a little snack tray, got you fluffy pillows, whatever you need. He's got your whole vibe. He's like, this is you. My goodness and unfailing love will pursue you. He's going to pursue you because he is a loving father. In Psalm 16, 8 through 11, it says, I know the Lord is always with me. This is one of my favorite verses. Here we go. I know the Lord is always with me. They're convinced. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. Do you hear that? Safety, peace, that's what it brings, right? For you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the path, the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and pleasures of living with you forever. Now, isn't that beautiful? Don't you want to get that like tattooed on your arm or something like that? I'm just kidding. Okay. But the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken. He's right beside me, granting me the joy of his presence. This is not what we're talking about. His presence brings peace and joy. It makes us have a sense of safety. We are not shaken. We are not ridden with anxiety because we know he is right beside us. Isaiah 49:16 says, see, I have written your name on the palms of my hand. Did you know there's a verse that said, he's literally like, I got your name right here, girl. I don't know if that's a tattoo or not. I don't know. That's his prerogative. But he's trying to give you this visual to know that your name is engraved. He cannot forget you. And Deuteronomy 31:6 says, so be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid and do not panic before them, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Okay? Abandon you. He's not. He's going to not only be with you, but he's going before you to check out the scene. Like, okay, let's get this out of the way. Let's make the way. My girl's coming through. My duty is to protect her. I'm not leaving her alone. I'm not failing her. And he's preparing the way. So when we know in our hearts that God is with us, it brings a sense of peace. We become more confident as we face trials of life because we know that he is with us. Did you catch that? When we know that he is with us, we become more confident when we face the trials of life. We aren't journeying alone. We have someone to lean on, someone to call on, someone to trust in, someone to cry to, someone to help in times of need. And my question is how do people function or find hope without God? I'll never understand it. We need God our Father. His presence, his comfort brings us peace, and the whole world needs it. So his presence brings peace. And so that concludes our message today. And today, guys, we talked about absent parents, anxious hearts, and breaking the cycle. We talked about the importance of our presence in the children's lives that God has given us, how important it is to be present and what our presence brings to their life. We talked about what the lack of our presence creates or parental figures creates. And it is not healthy to be without a parental figure. The presence of a parent brings peace. And we ended by realizing that God himself is our father. He is our parent, and that his presence brings us peace that is unshakable, that the world needs, that we need, our children need. And without it, there is fear, lack of safety. And with him, opening your heart to him brings in and ushers in that overwhelming sense of peace. And so, with all that being said today, guys, I pray that today's message spoke to you right where you needed it, whatever that looks like. And I pray that if today you're thinking to yourself, like, man, like I needed to just be reminded that God is my source of peace. Okay. Like his presence brings peace. And maybe you're evaluating your thoughts and your mind and your heart, and you realize you feel unsettled. You realize you feel anxious. You realize you feel afraid. And you realize, wait, God, I need to just usher your presence in. I need to say, come on in. I need you because I'm tired of feeling this way. He wants you to know He's not going to abandon you. And if you have felt abandoned by those you love, your parents, your family, your spouse, whatever it is, I want you to be reassured today that He never will. And so let me pray for you before we conclude our time. And God, I just thank you for your word. I thank you that you will never fail us nor abandon us. And I pray for every woman here, no matter what they're feeling, where they stand, what they're going through, that God, you would remind them that you will not go anywhere, that nothing will separate you and them, that your love remains. And I thank you for the children represented from these women, those that are born, yet to be born, and all of these beautiful children. I pray, God, that you would bless them, that they, our children, would know that your presence is all that they need, that your children would know, our children would know, God, that your presence brings peace. So I pray even now, as our children are awake or asleep, that your presence would surround them and fill them and give them this overwhelming desire to know you and search for you and love you and seek you, God. And I pray that you bless every woman here with peace, with joy, Lord, and that you would reassure them of your unfailing love. In Jesus' name, amen. I hope you found encouragement today. I'd love to connect with you. You can find me by following Lauren A. Hargrove on Instagram or Facebook. And before you go, can you do me a favor and leave a rating and review for this show? I would greatly appreciate it, and it would help other moms better find the show too. With that, thank you for being a part of our community today, and until next time.